Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And another installment for this year's holiday card series. I've already posted 2 videos officially because I've been doing Christmas card videos off and on since like July. But I will have a link to the playlist for this holiday card series at the end of this video, and then as I post more to it, like I always do, I'll just keep adding to that playlist to make everything a little easier to find. And for this video, I'm using this really adorable Merry Good Gnome stamp set from Picket Studios. You guys know me. I love gnome images, and this one's he's just really cute. Kind of folk art style. A little different, and yeah, really easy to color. I did a bit of foiling, added some sparkle, of course, die cut snowflakes, all the fun things. So if you keep watching, I will show you guys how I made these cards. I went traditional red and green on these cards too, which for me is a kind of a nice change because I do a lot of non-traditional colors with pretty much everything I do. So anywho, I started with the Merry Good Gnome stamp set, and I am stamping the image with Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink onto some Simon Says Stamp 120 pound smooth white cardstock. The ink is alcohol marker friendly ink, and the cardstock is just one of my personal favorites for alcohol marker coloring. It's just another one of those things where I've been using it for so many years that it's just my kind of go-to, but there's always, of course, like the Nina Classic Crest Solar White cardstocks. That's what I used to use for years. And there's Copic Expressit cardstock, Bristol cardstock. Like, I've been getting a lot of questions about cardstocks for alcohol marker coloring. And there's a lot of good ones out there. I've shown many different ones in my past videos. This is just the one that I have been using for, I'm not even sure how many years now. So anywho, for the coloring, I'm using my Spectrum Noir TriBlends. You could totally do this with Copics. You could watercolor this image. It would look really cute. This image is also, I would say, it's detailed enough that it would look really pretty just heat embossed, like metallic. Could do like gold heat embossing on white or on like dark cardstock. I think that would look really, really pretty. And no coloring at all, you know? I think that would look really nice. But I was in a coloring mood, so that's what I did. So I used my TriBlends and typical darkest to lightest. For the most part, I kept to just one marker because with the TriBlends, you have a light, a medium, a dark in each marker. That's the main reason why I like them. It's a convenience factor. And same thing, I will link to, I have a playlist with all the videos I've posted using these markers since I first got them at the beginning of the year, something like that. And I've done a fair amount of videos using these markers. So that's what I did for the reds. I just used that dark red blend. The greens are the only thing where I went outside the box a little bit. I used 2 different markers. I used the Aspen green blend and the, is it just light green? Yeah, light green blend markers. Just to give me more of a, I was kind of aiming for like a true green or a, you know, Kelly green sort of color because of the foil I'm going to use for the next step. So I kind of wanted to keep the tree in like that, that kind of color range. So went through, did all that. Of course, I've sped this up heavily in editing because otherwise the video would just be way too long. So yeah, worked my way from darkest to lightest. That's also just a habit for me. If you are new to alcohol marker coloring, generally lightest to darkest gives you a lot more control. But for me, I go darkest to lightest because just another just kind of habit / convenience is just how I like to color. So I used a very pale warm gray for his big old beard, and then very, very dark grays for his little boots and his mitts. And then I used a very, very pale blue for the cuffs and for his hat and whatnot, just to make things look a little more white. And then after I did that, I pulled out my Tonic Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen to add shimmer, which right now on camera looks like absolutely nothing. It always does until the light hits it, and I'll show with my flashlight at the end the shimmer, sparkle, fabulousness. So I added that to all of the ornaments, so they're all sparkly, and then I'm going to add it to all of the white areas of his outfit too. Just why not? You can never have too much sparkle. So added all of that, and then I add my white gel pen highlights and whatnot, because white gel pen is always the last step. Whatever you're going to add, whether it be like shimmer pens like this, glossy accents, etc., do all of that first. White gel pen last step, because the white gel pen, anything you put on top of it can either smear it or dissolve it completely. So I didn't add a whole lot of highlights. I added a little bit to, his hat, his mitts, etc. And then I just added little highlights here and there to the ornaments, because in the like actual stamped image, there's kind of little highlights on them, but they're really tiny. So I just colored over them and then went back in with the gel pen and added them. It was quicker that way, easier, didn't have to worry about it. So once I was done my coloring, I used the coordinating wafer die set to die cut these guys. And then I pulled out my little mini MINC machine, and I'm using the Rustic Christmas Fabulous Foiling Toner card fronts from Picket Fence. I've done a few videos so far using some of their different patterns. This one, of course, Rustic Christmas, and I showed like a bunch of the different patterns. And these are all printed with toner ink onto white cardstock. And then you need toner reactive foil and a heat source like a laminator, MINC machine, etc. And I'm using Picket Fence's Fabulous Toner Foil in Evergreen Christmas. So I just trimmed it down to slightly bigger than each of these little panels, which they're all A2 sized. And then stuck them in my carrier sheet, had my little MINC here heating up, and then ran them through. And I used one of like the actual carrier sheets that like came with the machine, because I wasn't thinking. It still worked out in the end, but I find these carrier sheets get like really wrinkled, and then that's also why sometimes I would avoid foiling, because I'm not getting very good results. Honestly, the other ones I've done, I was using like copy paper that I would just trim down, fold in half, and run my pieces through that. And honestly, that works perfectly. Parchment paper also works. Parchment paper does start to curl up really quickly too, though. So honestly, I just used pieces of copy paper and better results. So I was reminded of that when I did these, because the second one I did, the carrier sheet was very, very wrinkled, and I didn't get as good of foiling results, but it was minimal and I just went with it. Also, I wasn't using the full piece. I die cut just circles from these. And then after I die cut the circles, I ink blended on top of them. And because they're foiled, that resists the ink blending. So the foiling just is there and fabulous. And same thing, I'll tilt it in the light at the end, and it's like, I just love it. You can't go wrong. Again, I say this with everything. Like, you can't go wrong with splatter. You can't go wrong with sparkle. You can't go wrong with foil either. There's something about the shiny stuff. You guys know. My inner magpie is just loving it. So anywho, I blended, this was Simon's, I can't remember if I used Fairway or Field ink. I'll have a link to it in the supplies. Just a nice green. That was Field, so the darker shade. I blended that onto those circles, and then took panels of, this is Schoolhouse Red cardstock. I trimmed these down to about 5 inches by 3 3/4. It'll be smaller than my A2 card fronts. And the first thing I did was I blended Simon's Cherry ink, so just a nice red ink, and I just blended that around the perimeter. So I did that. You could leave it kind of as is. However, these inks, this is a very dark red cardstock. These inks do dry back a bit. So specifically with this color of ink, I think it would dry back that it would be very, very minimal, not very noticeable, because like right now as you're looking at it, the ink is still wet, so you can still see it, but once it's fully dry, I don't think you would see much at all. But it just gave me a little bit of a base, because then I went around the perimeter with another blending brush and some black soot distress ink, just to give it that extra, it just gives it that depth, and just that little extra something. So went around the perimeter with that as well, and just blended that in, and like kind of blended it into the red ink. And then after I had blended both of these panels, I grabbed just a scrap of black cardstock, and I'm using my anti-static powder on it. And I'm going to stamp one of the little sentiments from that Merry Good Gnome stamp set. So I'm inking up the stamp with clear embossing ink, and I'm just stamping it onto here. And one of the sentiments I pressed too hard. You can't really tell on camera, but I could tell the minute I pour the embossing powder on it. It was that second one. I was like, I think I lost the detail of part of the phrase. And then when I poured the embossing powder on it, I was like, yep, I did. So all I did was I melted the good sentiment, the one that turned out proper. And then I wasn't filming when I did this, but I just brushed off the embossing powder on that second sentiment right back into the container there without bothering to like melt it because there's no point. I just brushed it off and then flipped over that cardstock and then redid it. Just simple. Cardstock's got two sides. It happens all the time. So flipped it over, anti-static powder tool. This time didn't press too hard with the stamp. Coated it with the detail white embossing powder, melted it with my heat tool, and we're good to go. So then once these had a few seconds to cool off, I just removed that excess anti-static powder with one of my little microfiber cloths. And then there are coordinating little wafer dies for the two sentiments in this set. So I used a coordinating wafer die, tape that into place, and then ran that through my die cut machine. And then I also die cut some snowflakes from some white glitter paper using the Picket Fence more winter snowflake dies. Another one of my little rules with card making is, can you have too many snowflakes? No. They're unique. I have lost count. I honestly have no idea how many snowflake stamp sets and snowflake die sets I own. They're all unique, you know? So anyway. On the insides of my card bases, I stamped that gnome with just a light gray ink. That was Simon's flannel ink. So it's something easy to write over. You know, it brings the image to the inside of the card. It gives that a little something, but it's nice and light, so it's easy to write over. And I stamped the other sentiment from the set with VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink and just stamped that kind of right along the bottom of that image. And my card bases are going to be top folding A2 white note cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then to assemble my card fronts, I grabbed some red and white baker's twine from my stash, and I'm just wrapping it around these red cardstock panels, and then using my little reverse tweezers to hold that in place while I fiddle, you know, making my little bows. Again, reverse tweezers, must have in the craft room as far as I'm concerned. And I do have multiple pairs of them because they like to just disappear. They do. That's just what happens. And also sometimes you guys have seen in videos, I end up using like 2 or 3 pairs depending, because I also like to use the reverse tweezers to hold things together when I'm gluing them. So many uses for these little dudes. Anyway, tied my little bows after I had wrapped the twine around. Once I was happy with them, trimmed off the excess of the little tails there with my scissors, and then put some Big Mama foam tape on the back of these, because it'll give it a little bit of dimension without a whole lot of bulk. And this also helps when I add things like twine, because it's a little harder to adhere panels like this when you've got the bumps of the twine along the back. So the Big Mama foam tape just makes everything adhere a little smoother and gives that tiny little bit of dimension. So I put that on the back of those panels and then stuck these onto my card fronts. So once these are in place, those foiled circles, I'm going to just adhere with some craft tacky glue. So I'm going to stick those in place, kind of tuck them under the little baker's twine there. And then my little die cut snowflakes, like I said, I used some white glitter cardstock when I die cut these snowflakes. Love. And then just a few little tiny dabs of glue. Don't need much. I didn't bother, you know, covering the entire back. It's just not necessary. Like a couple little dabs here and there, and then press them into place and they're good to go. So adhered my little snowflakes around the main image, and then the little gnome Santa Claus, basically, I'm going to add the Big Mama foam tape to the back of these as well, just again to give it a little dimension and also easier to adhere over top of something like the baker's twine, because I was purposely leaving a little bit of a gap between the foam tape for the baker's twine to kind of pass between. So I just trimmed down, you know, trimmed a little strip for the bottom of them, and then added just random little bits and pieces of the foam tape, and then stuck these onto the cards. Once those guys are in place, the sentiments, I just added a little bit of black foam square to the one end because it's going to hang off kind of the main image there. And then the rest of it, I just added a tiny little bit of craft tacky glue, pressed that into place. And then, as always, you could leave it here. I didn't add splatter. Trust me, I thought about it. I was going to add splatter to the background and then decided not to for whatever reason. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe, you know, my brain just stopped. Because splatter would have looked great. They're Christmas cards. You can't go wrong. But I didn't do it. So, anywho, instead I added a little bit of bling. I used just some little picket fence, or not picket fence, pink fresh ruby glitter drops, because red glitter, perfect for Christmas cards, you know. So I just stuck a few of those on to kind of enhance my little card design. And once those are adhered, these cards are complete. So you've got the fabulous bit of foil on those backgrounds from those fabulous foiling toner card fronts. And then we got the sparkly die cut snowflakes, and then my sparkly little gnome with his little Christmas tree. There we go. Now you can see that sparkly, glittery bits. Just fun, you know, just fun. So foil, glitter, shimmer, sparkle, traditional Christmas colors, and a gnome, you know, knocked off just about everything from my favorites list. So as always, I will have links below the video to my blog post. In the blog post, there'll be picture links to all the supplies I used, photos of the cards, etc. And then, like I mentioned in the intro, I'll have a link to the Christmas playlist. I'll also link to my Spectrum Noir TriBlends playlist. That'll be at the end screen at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, thumbs upping, commenting, subscribing, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.